We're embroiled in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Our economy remains in a recession that dates back to December of 2007. Our gross domestic product decreased 6.2% in the fourth quarter of last year. Housing prices have declined for 24 consecutive months. Unemployment is at a 25-year high and rising. More than 4.4 million Americans lost their jobs, including a staggering 651,000 jobs lost last month. In my district, one of the wealthiest in the nation, applications for food stamps increased 79% over the previous year. In the past 12 months, Americans have lost 4 years of wealth, upending the carefully planned retirement strategies of millions of our fellow Americans. Over the next 2 years, if we do nothing, as some propose, our economy and the American people will suffer an estimated $2 trillion in lost potential, lost productivity, and lost earnings. We know the price of inaction. The last 8 years left us a dire legacy we won't soon forget. Trillions of dollars of budget surpluses squandered, critical infrastructure repairs and improvements ignored, alternative energy research and development placed on the back burner, regulations neutered, and the financial sector allowed to run amok, poverty ignored and allowed to grow. Middle-class Americans saw their purchasing power decline dramatically while the privileged few saw theirs grow and soar, and millions of jobs and trillions of dollars of economic progress lost. Mr. Speaker, we can no longer afford the inaction of the last 8 years. That's why this Congress acted in concert with President Barack Obama to pass the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. It was a bold stroke to stimulate this economy, put people back to work, and make the critical investments in our nation's infrastructure that have been so neglected in the last 8 years. We acted to ensure the future prosperity of our country. The Recovery Act will save or create 3.5 million jobs, including 9,300 in my own district, and provide needed investment in education, energy independence, health care reform, transportation infrastructure, and tax relief for the middle class. While no one action we can take or will instantly fix all of our economic troubles, our investments are showing progress. Thanks to the Recovery Act, shovel-ready projects throughout the nation are breaking ground, putting people to work planning, constructing, and managing these projects. Highway construction projects nationwide received $30 billion, with an additional investment of $10 billion in transit and rail projects. Thanks to the Recovery Act, those firms that were, in fact, put out of business or had to delay work are now being put back to work and putting people back to work, repairing and improving roads and bridges, modernizing streetlight systems and water treatment plants, and building many other needed but neglected capital projects in my district and across the nation. These are real jobs, building real projects that are helping real Americans. In the 4 weeks since the legislation was signed into law, Mr. Speaker, $175 billion has already been allocated, including $77 billion for education throughout the country, $27 billion for highways, and $15 billion in new Medicaid funding badly needed by our states. The economic crisis has caused shortfalls for virtually every state and local government in the nation. Our state and municipal governments are among the country's largest economic engines, performing everyday functions that Americans rely on daily, from public safety to public health, from local education to public libraries. The Recovery Act provided $53 billion in state stabilization funding badly needed by our states that are hemorrhaging red ink right now. Specifically, the investment in education, for example, will pay immediate and long-term dividends for our economy. Enhanced educational support includes $40 billion for local school districts and $21 billion for higher education, and will create increasing opportunities to prepare our children to enter the workforce. In addition, our investments in education are paying off immediately by stemming the loss of tens of thousands of jobs for teachers and custodians and bus drivers and nurses' aide and teachers' aide all across school districts in the United States. One of the primary drivers for economic recovery will be our investment in the technology field as well, Mr. Speaker. The world is changing, and it's critical America stay at the forefront. In order to reduce our reliance on foreign oil, we will move towards a cleaner, greener economy. The stimulus addresses both of these areas. The Recovery Act provided $30 billion to transform our existing energy systems and $8 billion in weatherization and energy efficiency funds that will create 87,000 new jobs, weatherizing 2 million households across the United States. The cost of health care continues to rise dramatically, Mr. Speaker, and it's incumbent upon us to reduce costs without harming existing coverage. The Recovery Act included almost $20 billion to accelerate the switch to health information technology systems by doctors and hospitals to modernize health care system. It's estimated that this reform ultimately will yield an annual saving of $77 billion in health care costs to our average Americans all across the country. This act is only one piece of the economic mosaic, and I know it's going to succeed. Thank you.